guys, today I have a process video for you, and here is some of the supplies I'll be using. And I am going to do a little bit of mixed media on the background here. I'm going to be using some gelatos, and what I'm going to try to do is mimic the color of this paper here. So I'm going to be adding some pinks and a little bit of orange to this and trying just to get the color to kind of match. Now it's not going to be perfect, but it is going to look pretty well, and I like how it turns out. So you're going to see me kind of mix this. And actually, I wanted to put it in the video, but it was getting a little bit long. So I actually tried to use this color through a star stencil, and it just didn't turn out very well. You can see that star stencil in the top left there. So I did try that first. It just kind of bled too much, so I didn't like how it looked. So what I'm going to actually end up doing is still using that star stencil, but I'm going to put a bunch of this on the background first, and then I'm going to take the star stencil and put some modeling paste through the stencil on top of this gelatos. So that's kind of what I decided to do instead, because I really still wanted to use the stars, but it just wasn't working for me to use it with the stencil and the gelatos. So I'm just mixing this up, adding water and getting it to the color I want, and I'm going to keep doing the packaging technique over and over until I get it to the look that I want. And I keep dabbing it up with the napkin as I go because I don't want it to be too dark. I do kind of want it to fade back in the background. So I am kind of blotting that up so it doesn't get too dark. And I'm just going to use this one color. I like to use multiple colors sometimes, but on this layout it just seemed that this particular color was good enough and I didn't really need to add any extra. So I did the packaging technique, and now I'm just taking my water brush and just kind of adding a little bit more color in here and there, kind of trying to soften the edges up a bit. I didn't want it to be too harsh, and I'm just squeezing the water brush as I go to add a little bit more water. And I don't believe I did any prepping on this page. This is just straight cardstock. I knew I wasn't going to be using a lot of water, so I didn't really need the gesso or anything on the background, and I kind of like how it looks. It does give you a different look when you do not use the gesso compared to when you just have the raw cardstock or when you have the gesso on. So you can just definitely experiment with that and play and see what you guys like best. And that's kind of what I've done. You know, just kind of depending on the look I'm going for, I will determine, or it will determine whether I add the gesso or not. So I'm just going to keep doing this until I get it the look that I want. And again, like I said, I'm just trying to soften up some of the edges. And I have my mixed media going in a diagonal pattern. And then I'm going to be putting the cluster on top of this. So a lot of this will be actually covered up, so it is peeking out just a little bit, and you'll see how that looks here as I go along. So like I said, I'm just wiping and dabbing, or painting and dabbing, to get it how I want. And this is really fun. I find this part of the process very therapeutic. I like playing with the gelatos and things like that and just kind of mixing and playing until I get it to the texture and the consistency that I want on the page and the depth of it. And the more layers you add on, so as you actually work on this and you add the different colors, even if it is the same color and you add it on top of each other, it does give an extra depth to the mixed media as well. So if you just did the one layer, it's kind of a little bit more flat, and then if you add more on with a brush or just add extra layers with the packaging technique, it does add that extra dimension. So here I'm just going to take my white modeling paste. This is just a regular white modeling paste. And I'm going to be putting it through this stencil, and I'm going to put some here in the bottom left, and then I'm going to put some at the top right. And I just like how that gives a little bit of extra texture and dimension to the page without causing a lot more heaviness. And that's kind of what I wanted. I didn't want this layout to be very dark and heavy. I wanted it to have somewhat of a light appearance. So that's kind of why I am using the white, and I'm not going to end up coloring those stars or anything. So here's a piece of cardstock that came in the kit. This kit that I'm using is actually from Scraptastic. It is quite some years old, probably about 2 years old, and I just really like the softness in the colors, and I had some scraps left over, so I wanted to use them on this layout. So I just basically took that greenish mossy color cardstock and I just trimmed a really thin border out. I like the look of this. Instead of just matting my white cardstock on the back of the green I think was already a little bit smaller. Oops, sorry about that. That's my phone. So I thought it would be kind of neat and different to just take a really thin border piece here and then mat that down. So just a little bit different look, something that I don't do very often, so I wanted to mix it up a bit. This paper is a Studio Calico paper. I absolutely love it, and it goes really well with that mossy kind of greenish color frame that I put on. So I'm just mounting my photos on that. and then I will kind of start playing with the placement on this. Now this particular layout I did futz with quite a bit, trying to figure out kind of how I wanted my layers and what I wanted to put where, so you'll see me kind of play with that quite a bit on this layout. Now this paper is absolutely gorgeous. I think it might be crepe paper. Ooh, I can't quite remember. I've had this kit, like I had mentioned earlier, for a very long time, and the paper was already trimmed out, so I didn't have the branding strip anymore, so I'm not quite sure if that was crepe paper or a different pattern paper. If you guys know, definitely let me know in the comments below, just in case anybody else is curious as well. That Let's Sail is just a chipboard, or kind of like almost like a laser cut, really thick craft cardstock almost. It's kind of hard to explain. It's not as thick as some normal chipboard, but it's a Let's Sail. The pictures are from a scrapbooking crop that we went to, me and my friends, and the Let's Sail was perfect because it was kind of a sailing theme, as you can see by our hats and our crazy looks. We were playing with some frames and stuff, and our little photo shoot. They always set up a little photo booth at our scrapbooking crop so that we can act silly and get our pictures taken and just have that theme represented in the little photo booth. So I think that's always fun. So like I said, it was kind of a sailing theme, and I thought that die cut piece was perfect. That Let's Sail, and I'm going to actually alter that later. I don't like the fact that it's that kind of raw chipboard look, so I will be playing with that later and adding some mixed media to that. So you'll see that here in a bit. Now I'm just kind of mounting everything down. Now because the mixed media that I use in the background, I didn't use a whole lot of the modeling paste. The Scotch, or not Scotch, the ATG gun, I guess, is it? Yeah, Scotch ATG. That seems to be good enough to stick this down, but if I used a lot of mixed media or used gesso in the background, I would probably have to use some kind of a liquid adhesive. That Scotch HEG gun does not work real well when it has a really kind of textured surface on the background, especially like the gesso and such. So in this case I was able to use that because it was just the gelatos. Now I'm just cutting out the little pieces of scrap paper that I have to try to put it around the layout. I believe this paper is a My Mind's Eye paper, and this is the paper that I was using to match the gelatos that I used for the background. And like I said, I'm just kind of trimming it out, snipping pieces off, and then tucking it in here and there just to kind of put some places for my embellishments and stuff to live. And so here's where I'm going to alter that Let's Sail. I'm going to actually take this white distress paint, and I'm just going to keep coloring it until it gets a nice opaque white color. And so I don't show you that whole process here, but I just keep putting layers on. And now I'm taking these water brush markers and I am just adding some color, so I'll put a little bit of the marker on the actual die cut piece, and then I'm just taking my water brush and then mushing that color around. And you'll see here that I'm going to be using a couple different bluish green colors to get it just the color that I want. So I'm going to keep playing with this, keep adding color, looking at it, taking it over to my layout, patting off some of the color to get it until I actually like what it looks like. And I love these water brush markers. They're the real brush color markers, I think is what they're called, and they are fantastic. I got a whole set of them. I definitely splurged on this, but I absolutely love them. They are fun for journaling. They either watercolor with themselves, so they're like a brush tip. They don't actually have like a marker tip, they have a brush tip, so you can actually take the marker themselves and blend them together instead of using water at all, so that's going to give you a much darker look. But if you want a lighter look, you can take the markers and color them in a bit and then use the watercolor pen or a watercolor brush to kind of melt the colors together to make them look like watercolor. And I absolutely love them. I like them probably better than I like watercolor in a lot of respects. I just like the intense color that you can get from them if you want, or you can lighten them up like I was mentioning. So I highly recommend these brush pens. They are really awesome. So I'm just going to keep playing here, getting the colors to what I want. I'm going to try this here, and I think I like the color. It matches those ampersands pretty well. So I'm going to color in the little, what is that called? The steering wheel? That's not really what it's called, but it basically steers the ship. Oh, what is that called? Anyway, I can't think of the name of that thing, but I'm going to color it in kind of a goldish brown color just to kind of separate it from the Let's Sail words. And I like how that looks, and it also matches the colors that I have on my layout. And I'm just patting and adding and patting and adding till I get it the right texture and dimension that I like. So I ultimately really like how this turned out, and that's a good way to alter your things. If you don't like the color of something, even if they're thickers or if they're this chipboard, you can just add some paint on top of it then as a base, and then you can add color on to make it what you like and what you want to make to match your layout. That didn't come out very well, but you know what I'm talking about, I think. So I definitely recommend this. So if you have like chipboard letters or anything, even the slick chipboard letters, if it's like a color that you don't like, if you add a little bit of gesso on the top of that and then add color on top of the gesso, you can just alter it to be whatever you would like. And that's a great way to use up your stash, especially if you have maybe some thickers or some other elements that don't necessarily match, or you have letter thickers that you're running out of E's or F's or whatever, and you can kind of combine thickers together. You can paint them all with the white gesso and then put color on top, and then they'll look a little bit more cohesive. Now they may be different styles, but having the color match will really help the thickers kind of go together, the letter stickers, if they're not too much of a difference in the style. So now I'm just going through these little bits and pieces of ephemera that I have from the kit. Some of these are die cuts that I had, and then some of these are stamps that I had stamped down and then just fussy cut out. So like the girl, the FYI, I think those are both stamps that I had, and I think I had stamped these earlier when I received the kit, and then I just kind of didn't use them on other layouts, so I just end up putting them with the little die cuts that I had from the kit, and that's kind of where they came from. So I didn't stamp them at this moment in time, but I did stamp them earlier. That little hello that I just put down and those little chevrons are gold embossed vellum. So I had another stamp set that I really liked, and I thought it went well with this kit, so I made a bunch of embellishments with the heart, the chevrons, and the hello, and I made a bunch of those, and what I didn't use just went back in the little die cut pack to use on a different layout, which I'm using today. That ampersand is one of the die cuts that came in the kit, and now I'm just kind of playing around looking if there's anything else I want to use. I have this Hey Foxy. It's hard to kind of read on the screen, but it says Hey Foxy. I thought it was kind of funny because we were just acting goofy, and it just seemed kind of funny to say Hey Foxy, let's sail, because we're just being goofy and using frames and taking pictures. So I'm going to use that top right yellow speech bubble there, and it's going to end up having my date on it here at the very end. So I'm just kind of playing around, seeing if there's anything else I want to use from this chipboard sheet. I'm going to try to use this piece, but I don't think I end up adding it on if I remember correctly. Yeah, I'm going to stick it back on the sheet. So next I am going to be pulling out some stamps. So I ended up stamping this little tab to add to the left here. I wanted to add some green. It felt a little lonely over there. There wasn't enough green, so I added that tab and just fussy cut it out. And then I'm going to actually stamp one more image here after I glue everything down, because I felt like that yellow speech bubble needed something up there. But first, before I do that, I'm going to be adding these sequins down. I am not going to show you me gluing them and placing them all, but that's kind of what I did. Here is that stamp that I stamped, and I'm going to just fussy cut it out and then stick it there to the top right of that yellow speech bubble. And I don't think I brought my punches. I was at a crop, I think, for this particular layout, so I didn't bring my punches, so now I'm fussy cutting, and cutting circles is not my forte. It does never looks as good as if I punched it, but it works. Nobody's looking probably that close. And now I'm just taking my Heidi Swap roller date stamp, and I'm going to stamp the date there on that yellow chipboard piece with this ink here, this from Stampin' Up. That's my favorite ink, and it matched perfectly with the paper that I used and the gelatos that I used in the background. So I'm just going to stamp that on, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to show you some close-ups of the layout, and then there'll be some pictures at the end. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the process, and I will talk to you again very, very soon. Bye, guys.